Yep, yep. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? All the people at the back, come through for the talk. Come have a seat. Don't be shy. Is it anyone's first time at CDR today? Is it anyone's first time? Okay, cool. Well, those who are familiar and those to new people, CDR is a safe space for producers to come, check out their work in productions, and, gather amongst yourselves. It's nice to see some familiar faces. Today, we are delving into the work of Emma, who is a producer, composer, released on Local Action, then moved on to set up her own label, Pastel Prism, has set up her own community, Producer Girls, and we're going to get a little bit into her journey and her story. So please, CDR, give it up for Emma.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming.
So we've got a bit of a danger laptop, right?
Oh, I didn't want to add the jeopardy to the situation
sorry.
so early. But yeah, it's a ticking time bomb, guys.
So we'll hopefully it will make it to the end.
Yeah.
But we will get into the beginning. Like, how did you get into music production? What did that journey look like?
Oh, I went to university in Sussex. I won't give you the year, but I can tell you that dubstep was around then, just starting out. And I was going to some nights in Brighton, like Dub Pressure and things like that. And I just felt like I had something to say from the music that I was hearing. I felt like my friends had the FL Studio Fruity Loops and had a bit of a think about it, and I thought I've got something to bring to the table here, and and that's it really.
You told me that one of your first productions was kind of like filled with gunshots from a grime sample pack. Is that?
Yeah, so I remember my friend Paul, he put Fruity Loops on my computer, and then he gave me like Drum Mega Pack 2. I don't know if anyone has that. Knowing chuckles over there. And he went to make a cup of tea, and when he came back, Victorian grime had been invented, which is basically like a big long bassoon sample and a few gunshots, and there was some sort of knives in there as well, and and then what was it, Streamism? I don't know if anyone remembers Streamism, the radio station. I think I walked in there once, and I just put it on someone's show. Obviously when you're 19, you've got a slightly different attitude, but and I think someone there said, oh, I like the bongos, and I thought, I'm continuing this guy likes the bongos, so I'm onto something.
What was the journey into production like? Had you had any sort of like played any instruments as a kid, or? Yeah,
played the piano growing up, and tried to play E.M.M.A Stan in year 7 on the keyboard and things like that, but not really anything. I never tried to make my own stuff until I was about 19 really.
Yeah. And did you take to it quite quickly in terms of?
Yeah, I think so, because I think I had something to prove, and I really wanted to sort of get involved, and I wanted to be better than the guys around me, to be honest. So yeah, I think that was my motivation really. It's changed now, that was probably 15 years ago, so I soon realized that wasn't really something that I could maintain as a motivation, so I had to find my inspiration from elsewhere and things, and think more carefully about what I felt like I didn't want to keep feeling like I wanted to prove myself, and it is actually probably been more enjoyable, and I can't really, like, I can hear my ego in the early productions, I can hear like I was trying to throw the kitchen sink in and confuse people, and things like that, whereas now I don't have draw on any of that anymore. But yeah.
Did you have any mentors or peers, or was it very much a solo journey?
Yeah, I think not in terms of not a mentor, but when I found out like Delia Derbyshire did the Doctor Who theme tune, I thought, oh, so like this is. It felt like I felt like she basically invented electronic music in my head when I was about 21. Then I thought, okay, let's continue that. You know, I've got permission almost. I felt because it was quite a blokey scene that I was in, and that was the first time I thought, actually, I don't even need to try and fit in with these people, like these guys. Like, even though I was enjoying doing it, I felt like, well, why don't you create your own sort of world and your own space? You don't have to be a genre actually at all.
What kind of year or era are we talking about?
That was around 2008-9.
Do you think it's changed much in terms of the sort of like blokey, male-dominated?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it's you know, I'm not as involved in the sort of DJ side of things and stuff anymore, so I'm not necessarily in a room with, you know, where you feel a bit self-conscious, like you're one of the only women in there or that sort of thing. But I think there's certainly, since about 2016, there's been more an improvement, I think, in the numbers of different kinds of people producing and stuff. And yeah.
So we're going to go into some of your productions and break down some of the processes and the full process. What we're going to start off with today?
Well, I think what I wanted to show in terms of project file was, does anyone here use FL Studio? Oh.
The one person in the back.
Come on stage, sir. Come on. Come on down.
It's good. It's not often we see FL in CDRs. I think it's much needed.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, that's my only option as well. So, yeah, I have dabbled in the others, but again, FL Studio gets a bit of when you try and sort of, like, I've moved into composing a bit. People invariably sort of old guys in roll necks. Sorry, you use what? Sorry, can you say that again? So what?
That's probably almost equally as male-dominated as grime is. So there's kind of.
I've moved from what? Yeah, I just keep moving around these spaces where people are like, "You use what? You who?" But actually, when I started Producer Girls, that was free workshops, and I had to get involved with other Fruity Loops producers in order to run those sessions, and that's when I met Dexplicit and P-Jam and Iconica, who actually talk about sort of mentors. I remember sending her, because I knew she used FL Studio, and I remember sending her stuff back in the day, and she said, I remember one of the emails said, needs more bass. But that was when, talk about mentors, when I actually met other FL Studio producers like Dexplicit and P-Jam and Iconic, which is actually on Ableton now, I think. But that was, again, sort of propelled me further into thinking, like, you can actually, like, it can do anything any other DAW can do. And, you know, the only difference is if you want to use it in, say, like a film context, you would get a music editor to deliver the files in whatever format that the film people want. So that works, by the way, for Ableton as well. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to know Pro Tools, for example. You just have like a person that delivers the files. So I've been told, if you prefer Fruity Loops, you stay on it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So I just thought I'd share that, because there are people operating in TV and film on FL Studio and Ableton, all sorts.
At the end of the day, it's about the end result, isn't it? Not how you get there.
Exactly. It's about how you can express yourself in I think, the easiest way. Always looking for a shortcut. An easy way out.
What are we going to get into then?
So, in light of what I said earlier about kitchen sink thrown in everything, which I describe as my first album, now I've gone the opposite way, really. I started to engage with, you know, what is the sort of something that you think is really good conceptually. And then I thought, obviously, Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight, snare roll. Let's just go to the centre of the Venn diagram of my influences for a second. I just
got Dealey Derbyshire.
Yeah, and we've got the Phil Collins snare roll.
Liking where the Venn diagram sits in the middle.
And I've been on that snare roll for about 8 years, and I've probably got another 8 years of being influenced by it. So it's not in here. I haven't. It's not in it. What I mean is, we're now going to listen to the full 8 minutes of Phil Collins. Me plagiarising In the Air Tonight. Yeah. No. This song is called Soda Lime, and it was. I made it after I watched Miami Vice, the 1986 TV series, because it's Jan Hammer. I hope I'm saying that correctly. ChatGPT doesn't do pronunciation, so I couldn't fact check it before I got here. But yeah, it's sort of like very deconstructed 1980s soundtrack, and I just thought, this is mental. Like, how did this even exist? And it was the most popular thing on TV. And I went down a hole of that, and obviously Phil Collins stars in that as well, which helped.
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah. And then Dire Straits feature in it as well. And then I've been on this sort of journey of adding more and more space, or trying to, into my music. And I centered this track around a sort of discombobulated electric guitar, which in my mind is sort of, again, what an element of the track that I wanted to build around it, basically build a track around it. So yeah, so I guess it's a bit soundtracky, because I then did send it to some music supervisors, you know, to try and monetize, but I released it on my own label, and yeah, and I should say that it's hopefully this works. It's got to just on this one, isn't it? I think should sorry, that was completely unnecessary. Just like to joking. I'll go into some of the patterns as well, just to show you. I just was going to show you where the guitar comes in.
Where are you getting the VSTs and sounds from?
A mixture of stock FL Studio VSTs, because I thought, well, if not many people use it, and not many people in FL Studio use the stock VSTs, and that gives me an edge. Yeah. But not anymore, because I'm telling you all, but I don't believe in gatekeeping information, so and then, yeah, so I can tell you, like, that guitar was, let's just try and multitask here, but this is why you should name your patterns, by the way. So, there we go, just change the song now. It's, hang on. This is a sort of deep dive into my workflow. This doesn't help. It's sort of.
They really are just called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Here we go.
I respect it.
Yeah, and look at the name of the file. It says Don Johnson, 26th of May, 1 May, for mixing version 3. So I had the option to keep that to myself, but I thought, as we're all going to hell in a handcart, I'd, just let you know that sometimes you just never name files properly, and that's just okay. Final. Yeah. So this, has anyone recognise, you sir, do you recognise this VST? Yeah? Have you ever used this? Yeah? Here we go. Oh, that makes me feel a lot better, actually. Thank you. Thanks. Why am I saying thank you? I didn't make FL Studio. What the hell?
It's a trained elephant in the castle.
Okay.
It's okay. Just ignore it.
Okay.
Out of interest, but before explaining this, you kind of went a lot into Miami Vice, Phil Collins, Dire Straits. Do you go into a song with certain sort of like, I don't know, pinpoints of like, I want to, kind of get the energy of that, or is it just I happen to listen to it that day, so it just kind of unknowingly kind of influences?
Well, I sort of really like draw. I have to keep like. Has anyone done the Artist's Way? You know how she basically the Artist's Way is this 12-week course in a book where if you haven't got any inspiration or you've got writer's block, you can do these exercises, and a lot of them are things like write down 10 jobs you wanted to do as a child, and do something in your life that reminds you of that. So say I wanted to be a chef, I might cook something, or ballet dancer, that was another one, go to a ballet lesson. And one of the things she said is if you sit down and you haven't got any ideas, treat your imagination like a pool, and if you've basically done an album, like I did an album in 2020, that pool's empty after I've done that. Some people don't do another one for 10 years, so you have to manufacture ways to come up with stuff. And for me, I constantly look for things that will sort of conceptually inspire me. And it just so happened that Miami Vice, for some reason, because I always thought it sounded corny without watching it, there was a lot I took from it. So I took, for example, the pastel colours. My label's called Pastel Prism, and that was just like named before I saw that. So the idea of Miami and the seaside and creating like a summer mood, but it's also quite dark because the sort of the subject matter is like chasing down drug lords and things. So there's a bit of an edge to it as well. And then the soundtrack, I was like thinking it broadened my horizons in terms of what a soundtrack could be, because obviously a lot of the soundtracks on TV and stuff are actually quite forgettable because they're meant to be in the background and stuff. So and then the Dire Straits thing is there's a big sequence of Brothers in Arms, and they filled up Wembley Stadium with the biggest band on the planet. And I think I'm quite interested in atmospheric synth / that it's sort of adjacent to what I do, but it's not, because I'm not a band, I'm not Mark Knopfler, but it had some broad appeal at some point, and it seems to have been sort of forgotten about. And I'm sort of interested in how can I reshape those things that might be in my DNA. I don't know, because my dad's a fan, etc. And
it's interesting that none of the influences were your contemporaries. You're talking about Delia Derbyshire and stuff from the 80s and stuff. Is that a conscious decision, or is it just like what you naturally listen to? And
I don't get influence necessarily from like sounds or what people are doing, apart from say some people like Metro Boomin I know he uses FL Studio as well, and I can hear a sort of I can, you know, I have like idols that I really admire and things, but I'm sort of more influenced in a more abstract way, and or sometimes I think I need to play ball more with like a structure of a track or whatever. So I might say, for example, Nathan Fake, I really love his stuff, so I might listen to that and I might think, you know, how do I not be an island on my own? You know, I like being an island on my own, but I also do want to connect with my contemporaries as well. So I do, that is on my mind as well sometimes.
Yeah. Should we get into Sakura?
Oh yeah. So I mean, yeah, so this is like, so there's two parts of the guitar in there. One is like actually a library sample from a you know, when you buy the licensed drum samples, not Splice, it's another one. I think it's just like electric guitar samples or something, because you know, if I'm going to be using this in sync, for example, you have to sign contracts saying that you have the rights to use all the sounds and things. So gone are the days of Drum Mega Pack 2 and the 50-cent snare, unfortunately. Not that he's going to come after me, I hope, but you know, you never know.
You wouldn't want him coming after you, for sure.
Yeah, no, I don't know, it'd be quite funny, but was a massive fan back in the day. Yeah, so that's sort of, again, you know, the sort of like the thing that sounds like an actual electric guitar is the sort of sample with a load of effects on, and then this sort of note that repeats itself straight after it is just this, you know, bass Fender picked, like it's just literally just meant to be. But the thing that's a sort of the secret sauce in this whole track is this hardcore, which I don't know why it's so small.
Is this another FL stock?
Yeah. I don't know why that's gone minimized, but because I'm used to doing it on Windows, to be honest. I can't really see it. Hang on. See if I can reload it here. It's essentially, I can tell you what it looks like. It's guitar pedals, basically. It just looks like guitar pedals, and you have like reverb, delay, chorus, some other random things you can choose, but they've actually got a preset setting called 80s lead, which I thought, well, that sounds about right. And I've whacked that on a lot of things in this, the synths, the snare, everything, because I wanted it all to sound sort of quite homogenous, like it was in the same space, and it gives it a sort of vintage quality, and I really do like sort of Joy Division type sound guitar, and I don't have a setup where I have a guitar or anything like that. My friend Ned did play it on my album, but I found that this is like a really cool way to get that sound, and quite degraded sort of guitar sound just from synths, really.
Yeah. How do you go about writing your melodies? Is it just moving around on MIDI in the piano roll, or is it like actually jamming out on the keyboard because you learnt to play, growing up?
It's a mixture of the two, really, because I think when I'm on a MIDI keyboard, I tend to just go for the same notes and the same minor chords and things like that. Whereas in piano roll, I don't have a desire to sort of necessarily play things live and have, so I'm not sort of thinking about, I don't want to be restricted by that in terms of, is my hand going to fit on the notes, and that's, my sort of toddler size hand going to fit on the notes that I'm playing. So I mainly just click it in, to be honest, because I find that's the quickest way. For me. You've
talked quite a lot about sort of sending to supervisors, writing stuff to picture, because it's something that you kind of moved into from like, you know, quote unquote electronic producer to actually, you know, writing the score to a Chanel advert, right?
I did a Gucci advert.
Gucci, sorry,
but she did have a track in the Chanel show as well. But I don't know how that happened. Just sort of someone added it to something. Yeah.
So how did that transition come about? It's, you know, to kind of move into that world.
Well, let me think. Well, so the intro on my first album was actually the last thing I made, and it felt like, do you ever make I don't know if you ever make a track where you think this feels like a new direction or this feels like more me. That's how I felt about the intro, and I made it on free. This is when I was in my Delia Derbyshire sort of inspo phase, and I just took all the drums out basically, because I was putting a load of drums and everything and trying to get DJs to play it and everything, and it was working. You know, people were playing it and stuff, and I was enjoying it, but I felt like I just wanted to make stuff that wasn't club focused, I suppose, and it was but weirdly I was doing a set at Fabric in room 3 at 10 p.m. one point, and there was like 2 people there, but there was a girl there called Sarah who was part of the community and was kind of, you know, that 2013, 14, 15 sort of club scene, and she worked for Gucci's agency, and she said, Emma, I'm going to try and get one of your tracks in an ad. I didn't know Gucci at the time. She was like, I'm trying to get your track on an advert, and I was like, oh, you know, great, thank you. I didn't really think much more about it, and then actually they used the track which is the intro track, which doesn't have any drums in or anything like that, it was quite, the 2 things that were quite good about that was, number one, I didn't spend any money on making it. It was a free VST. I got it off a forum. I typed in Doctor Who synths into Google, and there was actually corresponding with a mathematician in New Zealand who made the VST. It's called a Bacchus, which is like ABAKOS, and I just used like presets off that really, and although I did add some of my Korg into it when they sort of came to me and they were like, you know, we've got Tippi Hedren from Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds, who strangely is Don Johnson's ex-mother-in-law, which is pretty weird. Yeah, but I'm not like a weird fan of that whole family or anything, by the way. But I kind of, obviously Dakota Johnson, absolute legend as well.
Do you think we could have a look at the advert?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a sort of a perfect example of metrics sometimes not being important. Like,
oh, here we go.
Playing it.
Just to show that I can use the program, I thought I'd...
is it just hiding underneath?
Just press a few buttons to check that was... yeah, well, I don't know how I fixed that, but there you go. So that's... yeah, it's just it's quite cool. Of course, anyone know Etch? My friend Etch, he was laughing at me using this, but
doesn't he also use FL?
He does, yeah.
So, you mean at the
at hardcore? Yeah, he's laughing at hardcore. Okay, so without sort of, let's hope I don't get my bank details up here, but it wouldn't help many of you anyway, to be honest. Assuming that. Okay, let's have a look.
But yeah, so it's a sort of perfect example of where
I see something shining.
Sorry.
Glimmering like gold.
See, a completely free software was used. yeah, so I guess I doubled down on this really afterwards, because I realised not only was it what I liked making, but people seemed to be, you know, so I thought, you know, it did send me off in a slightly different direction.
It's quite an amazing intro to the world, the Gucci advert.
Yeah.
What would you say the sort of main differences between writing to picture and just like writing for the general music release?
All of your dreams will come true.
I think. Oh. Well, usually there's a conversation with. I mean, there wasn't in that case, to be honest. I just volunteered to add some stuff into it because I wanted to make it better, I suppose, than the original. But usually, you're following a brief, or you're having a conversation with a director. And in my case, because I have a sort of, you know, some people, I think, I've decided that I want to do work that's in line with my own style, because that's a sort of makes more sense. It doesn't make sense for me to sort of do Pirates of the Caribbean or something, you know. But usually there's conversations with the director on at which points they want the music. You know, you get like a time code thing. Like, for example, in a short film, you would get cues of when they want the music, so you can't necessarily just freewheel it. And yeah, you sort of it's a sort of a mixture between their idea of what the mood should be and what sort of sound they want, and then your sort of idea of, I suppose, you know, the music in a sense is and you know, in film, for example, is like another actor, you know, and you sort of need to make a decision on what you want to say, and it's not necessarily sad music, sad scene. It might be happy music, sad scene, for example, because that's more poignant because you know what's coming, or that kind of thing. So it's it's different, but then I do find that my music gets synced in not random, but when your own music is synced, often it's not, you wouldn't even imagine it would be in the context it's in, which is can be quite funny as well.
Do you think it's changed your approach to writing music? Like you talked in that last song about like, if I was to send this to a music supervisor, and do you think it affects your sort of like decision tree when you're approaching FL Studio and writing new music?
Not really, because I'm sort of I think when you start trying to second guess people, it's a road to ruin, really. I just think take it or leave it, to be honest. Yeah, and that's sort of the opportunities that I've got that are actually fulfilling. That's been my approach. I have obviously had, everyone has times where they sort of panic and they think maybe I need to do something more like this or whatever. But that for me doesn't lead anywhere. I mean, in terms of like what I do work outside of music as well. Like I do copywriting and tech writing and things like that. So I suppose just from a financial point of view, and if you've got more interests than just music, to be honest, and you can balance them, you should have freedom,
We were talking about sort of a lot of people might not necessarily talk about like their day jobs and just only paint the picture that I'm a musician, I'm doing great, or what Instagram tells you, when actually something you said was that when you have a day job, there's a purity to your approach to music making, where you're doing it for yourself and you might not have the financial pressure and constraint of like, I really need this record to sell, or I'm not going to, make my rent this month,
Yeah, I think, I've tried loads of different things, and I suppose, the downside to having a day job is that you're knackered and in a certain way, and you don't want to sit on a computer when you've just been sitting on a computer, and it takes out that the monthly pay takes out the sense of urgency about your music stuff. But then at the same time, that's if you're thinking in very short term approach, and if you're responding to the market and must go on TikTok, must do this, like you're taking all your power away. And in a way, since I've gone freelance with my writing and music, you pull the rug out and it makes you go for more things, it makes you hustle more, basically. So, and that's tiring in a different way as well. But I flip between the two. When I need a break, from music, I can earn some money elsewhere. And then when I think, come on, let's ride the momentum of your music, I do that. And I think when your passion is music and things, you have to basically make sure you try and structure your life where you're resting enough, and you're moving physically enough as well. If you've got a full-time job and you're sitting on this all day, that you're making sure you're getting out and you're running or like doing something, dancing, or
balance is key.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I think you're right in that there's been sort of a period where it's almost like you're not meant to say, you're meant to look like you sort of but with the industry, that the numbers don't really add up anyway, do they? That's no secret.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I should cover up for them. So,
yeah. It's very true. It's like it's how people feel like you're meant to portray yourself, not actually the reality of what's going on.
And that's sort of ego again. That's ego mind, and when you're operating an ego mind, you're not doing yourself any favors, really. That's what I've realised.
Definitely. Could we talk a little bit about Producer Girls?
Yeah.
Could you explain to everyone what it is? What kind of motivated you to put it together?
Yeah. So I, at university, I was part of quite a group of radical students doing sit-ins in the library, and things like taking copies of Nuts off the shelves in the newsagents, and yeah.
For those who are young, Nuts was like a very laddie.
You used to have just boobs all over the newsagents, and not there's any. I don't know. Well, we were taking them off the shelves anyway. Let's not get into that. I'm not anti-boobs, I should say.
You're pro-boobs.
Pro-boobs. Just
to get it clear.
And anyway, yeah, we're quite radical, and we always used to just do our own classes and lectures and things, because, like, say you studied media, you wanted to learn about philosophy. Someone would be holding. He was very student, I've been about as pretentious student as you can get, to be honest. But I remember thinking the cost of access and everything of music, and it was all sort of, again, quite smoke and mirrors, like, just because you know someone who's a music producer doesn't mean they're going to tell you how to make anything. It's all like keeping secrets, and a lot of the time, unless you've got a couple of good mates that tell you stuff. So I just thought, well,
you mentioned earlier, like, gatekeeping is not on your agenda.
Yeah.
It seems like that's quite an important thing for you in terms of like what I've seen with the sort of like the posts, and it's very much just like demystifying, making it really easy to understand the processes, because it can be quite sort of like smoke and mirrors, the way people talk about it, like what's mastering, what's compression, and like they almost make it for you to not understand, you know?
Yeah. And people like to look like they know something complex and you don't know something. And it used to make me quite angry because basically if you've got good sounds to begin with, you don't even really need to do anything at all. You know, and I stand by that because that's what I do. And I just wanted to break down the wall and be like, you know, at least if I start some workshops, because obviously, you know, you have people that eat like this. I'm sure it's useful, but if you actually wanted to start learning from scratch, having someone to point something out and sit next to you is the way to go, really. That's how I learned. So I started these workshops basically just to help people get out the starting blocks. Fruity Loops actually gave us a load of licenses, and that was like they were time limited, which was a bit annoying, but they were very helpful as well. And yeah, just sort of at the time I think it was quite unusual to have like because this was 2016, so it was like produced of girls, you know. I was following some fitness things where they were like girls this, girls that, so I just wanted to do something in music, like women, you know, sort of learning with each other. And
I'd also recommend going to follow the Instagram page, which has got like a bunch of sort of like, I don't know what you call them, like fact sheets or kind of...
Yeah, just little graphics with everything you need to know on there, basically, in the captions. But yeah, at the time, I think it was quite unusual at the time for like to single out so they could, you know, girls, because, for example, some people wanted to sponsor it and then said we don't do like gender specific events. So that shows you how much things have changed actually, because it's gone. People are very more mindful now of, you know, the whole spectrum of gender and underrepresented groups.
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of ahead of your time, to be honest. A little bit in terms of like, you know, probably in 2016 it was a conversation that was not being had as certainly not as it is now.
No, and it did feel like a little bit of not a risk, but I didn't know how it was going to be received. Whereas now I think people know things are positively received. At that time, you were getting told you were ugly on Boiler Room and stuff like that. So, you know, yeah, it was different. That was part of the reason I kept, you know, I wanted to do it as well, because I just thought, who do you lot think you are? Like, where you think you own the space enough to sort of talk like that about, you know. And it's not just, I mean, I don't want to go down that route, that talk negatively about it, but it wasn't exactly a bed of roses trying to, you know, sort of come up against stuff in that era, to be honest.
Yeah, it seems like you almost sort of carved your own kind of path and lane to almost not remove yourself from it, but sort of like be able to work in your own kind of creative space without having to like play that game.
Yeah, exactly. Just the more spaces we create, the better. Like this space is wonderful space and so important.
What's the third track that you're going to show us today?
Another thing that I was just going to briefly touch on was sort of a couple of things in relation to doing an album, and I don't know if anyone here's done an album or thinking of doing one. Maybe show of hands. Yeah, what stage are you thinking? Yeah, cool. Anyone else? You? Where are you up to with your? Oh. Yeah. I just wanted to quickly touch on a couple of things about writing an album, because I think that's another thing that obviously people just probably avoid thinking about, and because it, you know, sounds difficult. I didn't think it was difficult, and I have a couple of cheat codes. Firstly, I'd quickly say I had about 3 tracks that I knew would be on there, but I didn't know how they fitted together. So I sort of decided what order they were going to be in, and then I looked at the gaps and thought, what are these moods, and what's missing, and how they can connect. So a good example was Indigo, the first track on my album, and Gold, the third track. I actually just deleted everything from the Gold project file and used all the sounds sort of to make the second track, and then you have like building blocks then, and that was quite fun actually, because you're sort of creating more parameters, and then you've suddenly got a structure. Another thing I was going to say is, I think what I hear quite a lot in these sorts of contexts, people talking, is, oh, if you haven't got a tune going quickly, move on, leave it, move on. And I don't, and there's this idea that if you spend too much time on it and you're not feeling it, you're over-egging the pudding. And I just, I think if you think there's something salvageable in a track, then keep working on it until you've got it where you want it basically. And Gold on my album is actually something that I did that with, and that was advice given to Martin Scorsese about Mean Streets by John Cassavetes, independent, one of my heroes. He was like, he made it quite a commercial film, and he wasn't happy with it, and John Cassavetes said to him, "You've Boxcar Bertha, you've just spent a year of your life making a piece of shit. What are you going to do?" And he went, "Well, I've got Mean Streets, but I haven't finished it, and I don't know what." And he's like, "Well, what are you waiting for? Rewrite it." And I heard that, I saw that on Instagram, and I had this track, and I thought, like, sort it out, get moving on it, you know, because sometimes you just need to, you don't have to make something new, you actually just need to sort the track out. So that's something that was quite new to me during the album process.
Are we going to listen to the original version?
I can play a tiny bit of the original version, and then a little clip of the final version.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then just the last, and that's, let me just get it on here, sorry. Yeah, so I'll just skip through it a bit. So it's kind of, because my album was quite, I wanted a lot of space in it and things, and it was quite, wanted it to be more cinematic. This was just sort of like me doing an 80s-y sounding tune, and I just thought it's not really strong enough on its own to sit against my other tracks. It just sounds like it needs vocals or something. That's not what I was doing. So that's sort of a bit of an example of it. And then here's the final one. And I'll just fast forward it a bit. So this is the same project file, but you'll hear it how it's different. So this is me sort of giving it more of a cinematic feel, I guess. I just that's some white noise in there, by the way, just from like a stock FL plugin. In fact, there's a lot of stock FL VSTs on this track. But this I felt like this energy was needed on the album, like something a bit more like scary, I suppose.
It's quite a transformation from the demo to.
Yeah.
What's your sort of when you're thinking to totally redo it? What's your work process with it? Do you just like start from scratch, or you just kind of work till it slowly molds, or you take it to a hammer and smash it to pieces and start again?
I just think, what do I want to preserve here? Because a lot of the time the demos are better than the final thing, you know, as well. So I do still like the demo, but what do I want to preserve and what do I want to add, basically? So I think with that I was like, how can I keep the energy but make it more I want to say more space and more fragmented, so it has more of a dramatic arc to it, a build-up type thing, but then a finale that's sort of better than the rest of the track, because that's another thing that I like to do, have an outro that's better than the actual track, like Hotel California, because that's how you leave people. And yeah, rather than just finishing the track, try that when you next go into your projects. Try and make the outro better than the track.
And can you tell us a little bit about sort of where you're at creatively now with your kind of more recent releases?
Well, I'm actually I've been thinking about starting a night. I used to have a night, Emerald City. I was actually thinking of bringing it back. So I've been making a bit more sort of going back to more dancey type things at the moment, because I realise like it's a bit it's not as, shall we say, sociable sitting on your own all day writing briefs. So answering briefs rather. And I feel like I want to be more part of a community than I've been recently. So that's sort of influenced my stuff. I'd like to be able to send it to DJs and things, and yeah.
Do you have something to play from your last EP?
I actually, Soda Lime was from the last EP. Oh no, the more dancey stuff. I haven't got anything to play. Yeah, it's not quite ready, but I can play. What I thought might be quite nice to end on is my sister is a film director, and we've collaborated. My twin is in the audience. So Sophie Davis, I thought she might kill me if I don't. No, I'm joking. I thought I could quickly play a clip from our collaboration. We did this in lockdown, and we couldn't have asked for a better. Sophie couldn't have asked for a better collaborator. And it was all went very smoothly. And why are you laughing?
Is that, I can't tell whether you're being serious or not.
I'm being serious, yeah. Hang on, what is this? Yes. Okay. I'm just going to find a little clip. So,
can you give us a bit of context about this?
Yes, this was filmed in Paris, and our first collaboration together was called Light Years, a track released in 2014, and we've always had a light focus in the work. When we work together, colour and light is very important, and also Sophie's film tends to focus around sort of freedom as a woman in city spaces and nature, things like that. So this actually stars Sophie Davis, who's my sister. But so my inspiration for this was like the Eiffel Tower lights, and when they glitter, that's sort of, I just went, yeah. And and every city has its own colours, you know, like a pink sky in Paris is different to that in London and things. So yes, we'll be, here's to more collaborations with Sophie.
Your sister didn't look very happy about being pointed out in the crowd.
I had instructions too. No joking. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Have we got any questions in the audience? I feel like we've got to have a question from your man, FL user, for sure.
Oh.
That's a joke, but.
Oh.
Have we got any
Any
questions in the audience?
FL? No. Ooh.
Right at the back. Do we have a microphone?
Hey, thanks for your talk. It's been super helpful hearing this. I'm really curious, particularly around talking about, oh, you can't see me. Talking about writing to picture. And I know you were saying that usually you get the cue points from the director and you have to work to that. Is there ever a time where you start writing music before and that actually has the reverse effect where it influences the work of a director prior to them actually starting filming?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Actually, I was just involved in a project that won an award at the Crystal Palace Film Festival.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. We didn't know it was going to win, and we were sitting there, but that exactly is what happened. So I wrote some music. Diana Oliferova, she's the director of photography. She's also a director, and she did like a self-study short film, filmed both in London and the Ukraine, and it actually was happening as the war started. She's Ukrainian, and she asked me to come up with a piece of music that she could actually film to, and influence the filming. And then when all the footage came in, the music changed again. We had a couple more collaborators, a violinist called Eugene, who's amazing. He's actually was on the did violins on the Under the Skin soundtrack, and Carol, the editor of the film, actually is a music producer as well. So he chipped in with some of the drums as well. And so the whole thing just sort of kept changing, and then the edit would happen, and then we'd have to change it again, and I think that was quite an unusual process, but it certainly produced a really good result, I think. Normally they ask for like a few sketches, and then they pick one, and then you sort of double down on it, and you go off in that direction. Hopefully that answers the question.
It does. Thank you very much. Super helpful.
How have you found the process of like working with musicians, you know, as opposed to kind of starting with, you know, grime sample packs to like actually collaborating on that level?
I like both. I like being on my own, you know. I like no involvement sort of from other people sometimes, but also actually after watching Get Back, the Beatles documentary, I thought, wow, like the idea of actually proper sort of jamming kind of sessions and other people bringing their energy in, it's like a whole other experience, you know. And everyone's bringing their own personal story and their, you know, and it was very it was a completely different experience and very rewarding, I think, as well. Yeah.
Do you have any more questions? That guy in the middle.
You said something that I generally agree with, which is that if you have a good sound, you don't need to do a lot to it. Would you say that also applies to your overall mix, or do you do a lot of processing to it?
I process things mainly just for creative decisions. If I'm in terms of the EQing and things like that, I do my sort of housekeeping due diligence, you know, like as in I'm not going to deliberately have, you know, frequencies clashing and things, but I'm also aware that you know, for example, Joy Division put reverb on everything and got, you know, someone might say technically something about it, but the end result is that it's like amazing. So I'm sort of more interested in music as like a moment in time and things, and like maybe other things drive me other than like I mix all my own stuff, but I'm not like technically I'm not obsessed with details or anything like that. I think if it moves me, it's staying in, basically. Yeah, so dynamics. I was actually quite late to the party on dynamics, really. But I as soon as I sort of realised that, you know, you have a human playing an instrument, is a lot of the feeling is coming from the expression of the instrument and the volumes. And I don't want this to sound like a robot's made it. It's everything's just the same. Even with like, I like a lot of low pass filters sort of gradually moving, you know, like, so it sounds like it's coming out of the water and that sort of thing. But I see it as more of an expressive tool of like emotion rather than, I don't really think with a technical head, even though I technically sort of tick the boxes, you know. My decisions are more around the feeling, I suppose.
Right here at the front row.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, like, thanks. It was really nice and refreshing to hear like your philosophical like approach to this process as well, as opposed to like typically the technical stuff. I guess sort of in that vein, I had a question about, right at the beginning, you mentioned sort of moving away from the sound, the type of sound that your contemporaries were doing, and like, like taking the ego out of it. I wondered sort of practically, how do you then like share your music and sort of develop it in dialogue with other people that are doing similar stuff when you've sort of gone your own route? I just wondered if you could talk about that a bit more.
Well, I think the friends that I have around me in music, no matter what we're making, we're all we're all encouraging of each other, and even if we're in completely separate scenes, in terms of, you know, genres and things like that, I think it's just about who you have around you, and you know, my friends like, you know, Dexplicit, Etch, my friend Sam, who used to make stuff with Sim Hutchins, like I have a selection of friends, and they know me, you know, they know me as a person, they know my motivations, and we just all, no matter what I'm doing, they're supportive of me, and I am of them, and that's really how we all keep sane. I think.
Thank you.
Do we have time for one more question? One more? The FL user, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
That's going to sound very anti-FL.
Oh no.
Not necessarily, but based on your like influences and inspiration and stuff, have you never thought of buying like hardware to get away from the FL way, in the sense of like, to see if you can kind of explore that end of things?
Yes. You know, I've got a Korg mini log. I think my strategy is with that is to try and use that inside out before I sort of expand. But at the same time, a lot of what I like is very sort of modular driven, and I like, for example, I do sort of a mixture of like my own arpeggios, but I do really like the ones that, you know, the hardware, like being there's no real substitute for just pressing all the buttons and recording it as audio, and it being like a live recording. And I think that's something that I've been thinking about, maybe making a song in one take on hardware and having that as like maybe putting it out as like a single or something like that, because I'm not like I'm in the box mainly for my own sort of convenience, I suppose, and the quickness of it, and I seem to be getting away with it. But yeah, I would definitely love to do that as well.
Right, I think that's we're kind of overran, so I just wanted everyone to give it up for Emma.
Thanks everyone for coming. Cheers. Thank you.
It's really insightful to kind of see the journey, especially moving into the kind of more film and cinematic stuff. So thank you very much for your time, and thanks to
Thanks,
CDR
Raj.
for being here.